It's October, 3/4 of 2025 is gone. That means it's time to stop and rank all 8 September new movies that I saw from the worst to the best. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know what was your favorite movie of September, and if there's a movie that I missed that you think that I'd like, let me know about it down below. And let's get started. In last place, The Strangers Chapter 2. Now, this is a horror franchise that I'm not super familiar with. I watched the original Strangers for the first time just last year, and I only watched The Strangers Chapter 1 for the first time early last week because I knew I was going to see Strangers Chapter 2 at its world premiere at Fantastic Fest. So I have no long history with the franchise or anything like that. Watching Chapter 1 for the first time, I just felt like it was just a very bland home invasion film that was just redoing what the original Strangers had done with just an inferior cast. And so it just didn't bring anything new to the table. Strangers Chapter 2, for what it's worth, did something new. This is a 90-minute chase movie. It starts answering questions about who the strangers are. But that's about all the positives I can give the film. Oh, it does have a little bit of a nice sense of paranoia in the movie where you don't know who you can trust, and there is this sense of everyone could be a stranger that is mildly effective. That's where the compliments end. It is a 90-minute chase movie that it feels like not much happens. We haven't actually progressed the plot all that much. And when you say you're going to do a new trilogy of Strangers films because you have all these new, fresh ideas you want to explore, and the first movie is just a remake of the original one, the second one feels like a bridge movie where it's just a long chase where not much happens, all to get to the third movie, it just feels like you're wasting our time. It feels like you had maybe 2 movies worth of stuff that you attempted to stretch out far too long in a cynical move. So even the central concept here of we're going to unpack the history of the strangers and find out who they really are, that feels antithetical to the entire franchise. The whole point is that they're strangers. The whole point is that we don't know who they are. They don't have some big motivation. That's what made them creepy in the original movie. So even the central premise of what they're trying to do with this trilogy of films seems at odds with the franchise itself. So you just get a very dull chase movie that doesn't really have much of anything to offer that's memorable or interesting. Number 7, Him. And this one was a pretty big disappointment because it felt like there was the potential for something really cool here, as it, based on the marketing, was going to be the sports horror film produced by Jordan Peele with a creepy performance from Marlon Wayans. And then you get the actual movie, and it just doesn't feel like it lived up to any of its potential. On the positive side, it is a very good-looking movie. And whether you're talking about the production design, the framing of the shots, everything feels like a still that could be used as a promotional image, thrown into a trailer. Every shot feels thought out. And I say this as a compliment. Every shot feels like it's pulled out of a cool-looking commercial. In this context, I mean that as a compliment. And Marlon Wayans does give a really creepy good performance. He doesn't lean into any of his comedic chops. It's just kind of this unsettling performance. And I don't know the name of the lead actor in it, but also does a really good job in the film. But it felt like a movie that was all style instead of substance. And I described it as a sports horror film. The reality is it's much more of just a psychological thriller, and the marketing might have sold it incorrectly a little bit. But it's much more about the psychology of these high-performance players with kind of this horror bent to it in a context of sports. But like if you go into it wanting a sports movie, there's not a single game of football in the film. So on that front, it doesn't deliver what you want from a sports film. And if you go into it wanting a horror movie, well, there's an awful lot of sports in here and psychology. So there are these supernatural horror elements in it, but it doesn't really deliver on that front. And then as a psychological thriller, it also is just, by the end of it, felt a little bit hollow. It didn't deliver enough. And so that was the frustration of it. It just seemed like there could have been a better movie with more oomph to it, more weight to it, more size to the story, the thrills, the horror, all of it. And it never fully delivered on the sports, the horror, or the psychological elements. But it looks really cool and there's great performances. Today's video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not closing the door when you use the bathroom. Even if you think you have nothing to hide, why give random creeps a chance to invade your privacy? So why do you need a VPN? Because all of your traffic flows through servers, internet service providers, including mobile network providers, and they know every single website that you visit. And in the US, ISPs are legally allowed to sell that information to advertisers. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP can't see your browsing history. So why is ExpressVPN the best VPN? It hides your IP address, making it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. It's extremely easy to use. You just open the app, click one button, and you're protected. And it works on all devices, laptops, phones, tablets, and more. You can stay private on the go. I have been an ExpressVPN paying user for a while now. I travel a lot. ExpressVPN was the right cost, super easy to use, and it didn't slow down my browsing of the internet. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Chandler. That's expressvpn.com/Chandler to find out how you can get your 4 extra months. expressvpn.com/Chandler. Number 6, Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. The movies like this are always really tough to review and rank because they are movies that are so specifically targeted at a demographic that is not a single critic on the planet. This is a movie made for preschool, kindergarten, very young elementary age girls, period. And that is not the same demographic as any critics on the planet. So it's a little bit tricky. Now, I have a girl that falls into that category that's been watching Gabby's Dollhouse for years. We have the Dollhouse playset at our house and all that fun stuff. And so whenever she found out there was a movie coming out, she could not wait to check it out. She was so excited to see the movie. And so I took her. As soon as she got out of school on Friday, we went to go see her most anticipated movie of the year. And my little 7-year-old girl, about 75% of it just had the biggest smile on her face, was so excited. There was about 25% that it got kind of dark and the dollhouse started to lose its magic and its sparkle, and she thought that was a little too creepy for her. But the target audience, generally speaking, was happy with the movie, and as a parent, it wasn't filled with messages that made me uncomfortable or taught her to disrespect parents or anything like that. So, as a parent, I was like, all right, if she wants to watch this, cool. But it is strictly for her. I, of course, would never watch this on my own. How do you rank that? I don't know. The basic story of it is blending together essentially plot points and themes from each of the first 3 Toy Story movies. Like, there's a character that is the main human bad guy in the second movie. I'm blanking on the name of him. The collector that's collecting all the toys. And then there's another villain that's Lotso from Toy Story 3. But then there's the road trip aspect of the first Toy Story. And there's all sorts of these themes about growing up and how you stop playing with your toys. Like, it is so soaked in Toy Story, but with a Gabby's Dollhouse skin on it. And so they're stealing from the best. And in that regard, it's competent enough, but also Pixar movies are made for families. This is strictly made for little girls. In fifth place, Conjuring Last Rites. And I'm a pretty big fan of the mainline Conjuring movies. Even the third one, Devil Made Me Do It, that a lot of people are pretty negative on. I actually appreciated that it was kind of this investigation and the introduction of human bad actors into the mix that are using the supernatural for nefarious purposes. I'm I guess compared to most people, defender of that film. So the idea that we were closing out the franchise, or at least our run with these lead actors in the roles, we'll see if that sticks after how well this movie did, had my attention. But I didn't go in with particularly high expectations because, this franchise is now getting a little bit old and we've played all of this out. And I feel like they did the best they could to try and have a real emotionally satisfying send-off for the Warrens while delivering more of supernatural investigation in a franchise that's already gone to that well a few too many times and kind of has been pulling up dry for a little bit now. They did the best they could to deliver on both the fronts. So it was fine. It was both at its best when it was the family moments about the Warrens with their daughter passing on the legacy, but also that's what bloated the runtime of the movie and made it feel a little bit too long and unfocused because we spent so much time on their daughter and her wedding dress and all this stuff that the actual exorcism and stuff, the actual plot of the movie felt like an afterthought for over half the film. So it started to feel a little bit more far-fetched that the further we go into this franchise, the more sensational things need to be and the more you're like, okay, I mean, there's always been questions about the validity of the Warrens, but you watch the first couple of main Conjuring movies and there's a lot of point for point, this is what was reported and this is what happened in the movies until you get to the third act where it's all fabricated. Here, you're just watching it like, okay, none of this was reported. Obviously, none of this is what took place. So it just felt a little bit more far-fetched. So for me, it was satisfying enough. I had my Conjuring itch scratched. It was emotionally satisfying as a send-off, while at the same time feeling like, all right, this is feeling a little bit played out. Maybe it is time to end this. And then it became the most financially successful movie of the franchise, so almost certainly they're running to everybody involved like, let's do more, what else you got for us? In fourth place, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. And this is one that I went into very excited and very nervous for the very obvious reason that I'm a massive fan of the original Spinal Tap, watched it a zillion times back in the day, and long-delayed sequels don't have the best track record. The original Spinal Tap that came out 41 years ago was about an aging band past their prime doing this failed tour. And now it's 41 years after they were an aging band. Quite literally, one of the guys in the band is in his 80s. The other two were late 70s. How does that translate? Will it work? And I was pleasantly surprised to say that it was a movie that was good enough. And I say that the good version of good enough, not like, it was good enough. It was good enough that, it was nice to see the characters one more time. Their banter still works. It was actually funny. The humor still translated till now. Their idiosyncrasies, their quirkiness, their stupidity, it all still worked. And this movie also had a little bit more of a plot than the original film. The original one is like a tour log. Just we're following them on tour, but it's not really plot based, where because this is about the lead up to a specific event, you're following what they need to do to get ready for that. There's tension in the band, so there's mysteries of what took place in the past, so there's questions that are answered, there's conflict that's overcome. Not everything works. There's a few too many cameos of musicians, and some of them are really good. And there's a couple of them where it felt like just because somebody said yes, they wanted to include it in the movie. And you're like, okay, this just isn't funny though. There's a whole bit with like Paul McCartney that's real funny for a little bit, but then it felt like they just, well, we got Paul McCartney. We got to include everything we have with Paul McCartney. So it's not perfect. It absolutely is not as memorable or iconic, but it's charming enough and it's funny enough. So if you're a Spinal Tap fan, it's worth checking out. In third place, Prisoner of War. This is a new Scott Adkins martial arts period piece POW film. So essentially, he's a POW during World War II that is sort of being forced to fight against the Japanese soldiers that are trying to break his spirit. And he's trying to escape the camp. So it's a little bit of The Great Escape. It's a little bit of a tournament fighter, period piece action movie. And simply put, one of the better Scott Adkins action films. Just like a solid story, clear objectives, characters that you care about, nice genre blending, so it doesn't get lost in the mix of a whole bunch of other movies that are very similar to it. It's like, no, I can't think of a World War II tournament fighter escape from the prison movie. Like, it's the only one that I know of.
Yes, so I thoroughly enjoyed the film, and on this movie, you had a story credit on this film. Where exactly did the idea come from? How did you envision kind of this, World War II POW martial arts tournament kind of merger?
Yeah, I just had this idea knocking around in my head for a few years about doing something that felt like that famous scene from The Deer Hunter, but like a martial arts version of that. The bridge over the River Kwai felt too big in scale for the sorts of films that I normally end up doing. So I wanted to do something a bit more down and dirty like that. Well, I just love those survival movies, like Men Against the Elements or in the Wilderness, or if it's like a survival type of movie like this, Behind Enemy Lines. I always gravitate to those sorts of stories.
And of course, he's great in these types of roles. So it's not meant to be as flashy of a martial arts film, but that doesn't mean that it's not thrilling and exciting nonetheless. And there's parts where he's fighting multiple people and with wide takes, and you're like, yeah, that looks like a guy actually fighting off 2-3 people in a way that makes sense. There's emotional hooks inside of it, where you're bought into the backstory of this guy and how his backstory offends the head of this Japanese POW camp that kind of leads to everything that the guy that's in charge of it is doing to Scott Adkins' character. So I just thought it just worked really well. This is one of the better Scott Adkins action movies and one of the best direct-to-video action movies of the year. One battle after another, the latest Paul Thomas Anderson film. A lot of times his movies aren't exactly on my wavelength, but of course he is a tremendous talent. And a movie like this is him tackling genres that are much more my wavelength. And so naturally, this is one of his movies that I just connected with much more than most of his films. And part of what it's so good at doing is that it functions as kind of this tense action thriller with these people on the run, and you just feel like you're on the edge of your seat almost from the very beginning of the movie until the end of it. There's only a couple times where that tension lets up, and there's some very cool action sequences in here. In particular, the final car chase that uses hills in the middle of nowhere, like waves in the ocean, in a way like I've never seen something done like this. The way that it was shot, the way that the chase was even choreographed, and the wits of the characters of using that environment, really well done. But as tense and thrilling as it is, it's also able to be really funny without compromising the tension of the film. And it just has this really sharp sense of humor that runs throughout the entire movie. It was very effective. As much as I really enjoyed the movie, there is a bit of an asterisk on it for me, which is to say that it's a film that is a pretty uncomfortable watch in the month of September 2025, which is to say the protagonists of this movie are political terrorists, that they use fear they use violence to incite fear for political change. And the movie starts off with them attacking essentially an ICE facility, blowing up a politician's office, and robbing a bank so that they can fund their revolution. And in a month with political assassinations, where the day after I watched this movie, where there's a gun assault on an ICE facility here in Texas, a deranged sniper trying to put fear in ICE officers opened fire on an ICE facility and killed a detainee. Didn't kill an ICE worker. He killed the detainee because political violence has consequences outside of the intended ones. And so a movie that buddies up with political violence, I don't know, doesn't really sit right with me in this particular month. Very well made, very engaging, very entertaining. The subject matter, I think, kind of highlights maybe we shouldn't be cozying up so much. And like the movie doesn't encourage, and in the traditional sense, it doesn't glorify political violence, but it doesn't condemn it. And it does kind of have a whole rah-rah, keep the revolution alive, let's pass the baton to the next generation, allyship. Like it buddies up with political violence in a way that is really uncomfortable in a month where political violence is so obvious. It is weekly headlines. The Atlantic is running article headlines on the rise of leftist terrorism. And then you have a movie that has that as protagonists. That's uncomfortable. But coming in at number 1, The Long Walk. This is a film that I'd heard great things about prior to watching it. They'd actually did 3 different press screenings in Austin. I missed every single one of them. And then I was late to watching it the weekend that it came out for a variety of reasons. And because the movie's premise is people go for a long walk and slowly die, it's not a film that is the easiest sell for people. Even as someone that had people that know me really well saying, oh, check this out, this movie, you're going to love it. It's one of my favorites of the year. Even I was like watching the first 5-10 minutes of it, and I was like, I don't know how this movie's going to keep me hooked and engaged from beginning to end when it's a movie that has such strong storytelling constraints. The limitations for what this movie allows to happen is so small. I just don't know how this can be compelling for 2 hours. Even while I was in the theater, I was thinking that. And pretty much as soon as the first person died, I went, oh crap, I get it. And because the movie is so small and limited, it's able to turn an untied shoe, a pebble in your shoe, needing to go to the bathroom, tripping, a cramp, into something that is absolutely terrifying. And thus, you're just watching a movie on the edge of your seat. It's a film that has 2 different things happening at once. Building your love for a set of characters and their relationships to one another while killing them off. And you have these 2 conflicting things going on. It's just constant sense of falling more in love with these friendships. A movie actually about friendship, while watching those friendships end and people die. And it makes for something just so powerful without needing a bunch of flashy outside stuff to make it work. It's like a coming of age story. It's a horrifying story. And I would use this as the counter example to One Battle After Another of a movie that feels extremely relevant to the month of September 2025 in the right way. It's a movie that presents violence as absolutely horrifying. Every violent act makes your stomach curl, and it sickens you. And it's watching like 50 people die. Every time you hear a gunshot, your stomach tenses and you feel disgusted. And it's a movie that reminds you just how horrifying violence really is, versus a movie like One Battle After Another that makes light of how horrifying violence really is. Like I said, One Battle After Another, very good movie in many ways. Some of the subject matter makes me very uncomfortable. Long Walk also makes me uncomfortable, but in the right way. It's compelling. I love that it's a movie about friendship, but it's also one of the most horrifying movies of the year. And don't be scared away by a concept that seems like really small and narrow. It is so compelling. So it comes in at number 1. This month, I also attended Fantastic Fest, where I saw 27 movies. Highly recommend you check out that video to just kind of discover some smaller movies, some foreign movies, just stuff that might not be on your radar, but might end up being your favorite movie of this year, next year. You can check it out over there, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.